Hey there, everybody. How you doing? Gonna play us some Missile Command. I'm wearing my Missile Command sweatshirt tonight. We're playing the Atari 2600 version of the game, and I'm gonna be talking a bit about the 2600, a bit about when Missile Command was relevant, and some other things as we play through this Atari 2600 game. We're gonna just play on the very first gameplay mode that's here, and yeah, let's go. So, if you don't know anything about Missile Command, first of all, shame on you. But second of all, the idea of Missile Command is to defend the cities, which are down at the bottom of the screen, from incoming missile attack. These are intercontinental ballistic missiles, or ICBMs, that you see approaching the cities. So you have to use your silo, which is that pyramid in the center of the screen, to launch your missiles out of. The arcade version of the game is 3 different silos and 3 different fire buttons. But for the Atari 2600, for obvious reasons, it was easier to just have one main silo to worry about. You're using just one fire button, and it works just fine. In fact, this is my preferred way to play Missile Command if I have a choice. I've played the arcade game, and it's definitely cool. I like the trackball controller, and and there's a whole bunch of chaos on the screen. But for my money, I'm more than happy to play the 2600 version here. This game came out in 1981, which would have made me 9 years old at the time. And obviously, the world was a lot different in 1981. That's for sure. Didn't have cell phones. We were using rotary dial phones. Cable TV was a thing, but we were still having, for example, television stations would go off the air at night. There were shows like Dallas and Dukes of Hazzard on TV. Those are good times. My experience with the arcade game comes from a campground in Whately, Massachusetts, which is kind of close to the Massachusetts-Vermont border. And my mom would drag myself and my 2 younger siblings there like several times during the summer. And I hated it because like camping is just not my thing. I don't like outside. I never have. Um, and if I'm being honest, my mom was notorious for just, ooh, that's not good, for throwing us kids out of the house during the summer. We would get up at 8:30 or 9 o'clock, and it's just go out, leave, get out, come back when it's lunchtime. So we'd come back at like noon, and then we'd have lunch, and that would be it. Then it's back to outside. Don't come back till it's dark. So it'd be dark, and we would have dinner, and then we would go to bed. And a lot of kids grew up that way in the 70s and 80s. These days, kids who are growing up can mess around with cell phones. They can stay in and play games or stream or whatever. But back then, first of all, we didn't have a lot of that technology, and second of all, like parents back then, they weren't having it. If you were home from school during the summer, you were going outside. And if you weren't going outside, like you were doing something around the house, like chores or house cleaning or something that effect. One horror story I have is there was one summer where my mom went on a cross country truck trip with my soon to be stepdad, or my stepdad at the time, I should say. They were already married. Um, so she couldn't take the 3 of us kids, so she dumped us on my dad and my dad's wife, my stepmother, who was just not a great person. And it was the same kind of thing. Like it was so bad being thrown outside that we were actually every morning we would pray for rain because we wanted a day to be able to take the time off and to watch some TV or just do something that was different. Um, it was not fun. uh, and I think that being forced to go outside so much as a kid like made me hate it as an adult. Like these days, like I'm not into like going out and doing things. Like summertime comes. Now granted, I have a new job, so I'm not going to be having summers off anymore. But when I was in school, man, I wanted to have the summers just to kind of recharge my batteries and relax. And I didn't have a ton of friends, so what would often happen, I was just wind up hanging out with my brother or my sister, and we would just kind of make up things to do just to kind of kill the time, try and survive until the dinner bell. It was a little bit easier when I was in high school because my mom was a bit more lax with me. And being in high school, wow, that's not good. And being in high school, like I actually had the opportunity to stay home if I wanted to stay home instead of go to the campground with my mom and my brother and sister. I had the ability to do that. So I got to stay home. And at this time, when I'm in high school, I'm playing games on my Commodore 64. So, you know, I had some games to play. It wasn't a console. And of course, at that time, during my high school years, the NES was the thing. But still, it was better than having to just kind of hang around outside. But when my mom dragged us to this campground, which she would do, uh, there was one good thing about the campground, and that was that they had a rec room. And inside of the rec room, they had arcade games. Now, it was kind of brutal in that you had to have money to play the arcade games, and my mom didn't have a lot of money. Oh, just under the buzzer. Uh, but I still got to go and look around and watch the attract screens and hope that I could find a quarter inside the coin slot. I was always guilty of that. Even going to arcades growing up, like that was one way that, even as a poor kid, that I was able to still enjoy arcade machines was, first of all, I made friends with the arcade operator or with people who were working in the arcade. Made sure that they knew who I was, and I would be watching when they would do coin checks, um, and I would watch other people play because you never know when someone who's playing a game would have to go somewhere, like they have to go to work if they were on break, if um, or if they were just getting bored of what they were playing. And you lived for those moments as a kid. You lived for those moments where someone was going to stop playing and you were going to be able to pick up where they left off. You know, here you go, kid. Finish up for me, will you? Those were the best words ever to hear when I was a kid growing up. And I heard it quite a bit. And I heard it even as young as playing Missile Command here, where I would go to an arcade or to or to the pool hall that I've talked about. Oh, am I gonna have enough? Oh, 50 points short. So I would hear that quite a bit. I'd be walking around, I'd be watching someone play a game like Galaga um, or Leland Quarterback or Arch Rivals or something, and something would happen where they'd have to leave and, can you finish up for me? Or if they were playing pinball and they had to go and they got some free games, they're like, there you go, they're all yours. And that was just the best. And I tried to do that when I got older, as an adult. If there was someone watching me play a game in an arcade back when arcades were prominent, I tried to be accommodating. Like if there was ever a kid in an arcade who came up to me and asked me if I had a couple of tokens, I'd always would give, because that's how I played. Um, I didn't have a lot of money, and it's difficult when you're a video game fan to remain a fan of video games when you don't have any money, because it is a hobby that is driven by money, right? You have to have money to either pop into an arcade machine or to buy games or to buy hardware, and we just didn't have it for the longest time. So I remembered where I came from, and I tried to be as accommodating as possible. Which is why before the pandemic hit, like I didn't like the fact that a lot of places went to like card swipes instead of tokens, because you don't want to give your card up, because your card has like tickets and stuff on there and you can reuse it. So it's a lot more difficult to give a free game to a kid if they ask for one than it was when arcades were relying on tokens. Of course, during the pandemic, arcade gaming is a lot tougher and a lot less popular. Arcades are a lot less populated. But back in the 90s and through the first part of the 2000s, yeah, arcades were still, they weren't as groundbreaking, and they weren't like the culture that they were during the golden age of the 1980s, but they were still a lot of fun to go to and to play games in. Even the small ones like the campground. So the campground rec room had Missile Command. They had Battle Zone. They had Champion Baseball, which I have played and written about online before. They had Mr. Deuce Castle. Ugh, that's too bad. They had Galaga, which I did not appreciate at the time. When I was a kid, Galaga to me was a waste of money. And I know that's sacrilege to say that, especially now because I love the game. But as a kid, when I didn't have very many quarters to spend on it and I couldn't practice, I thought it was a waste of time. They also had 2 pinball machines. I remember one of them. I don't remember the other because it was almost always out of order. But the pinball machine was Gottlieb's Aquarius, which I liked a lot. And that game I actually got pretty good at, to where every so often I would be able to get some extra credits and really make the money kind of stretch. Boy, oh boy. Not good. So I did play. I played some Missile Command, but the thing about the Missile Command machine is some of the paint on the controller interface where the trackball was and the fire buttons was missing. So every so often when I would play, I would get a little bit of a shock if I touched the game in just the right way, like if my skin touched it in just the right way. That's not good. That's not what I wanted to do at all. That's all right. And I got an extra city coming. Played a little bit of Battlezone. I played a lot of Champion Baseball. That was what me and my friend Chris played. And if you watched my Top Gun video, I talked a little bit about Chris. That's the friend that I met at this campground who I wound up going to Worcester to his house during vacations in school. I didn't play that right at all. That's not good. So we played Champion Baseball, and that game was rigged. Champion Baseball was so rigged because, well, it just was. You could start the game with like a 3-run first inning, right? Now, the idea with Champion Baseball, I can't believe I did that. The idea with Champion Baseball is you can keep playing as long as you're ahead, but you're always batted at the top of the first inning, so you had to kind of hold yourself together for the You had to hold yourself together during the bottom of the inning. You had to try and not let the computer score or score more runs than you had. So every so often we would get to like the second, third, even the fourth inning. I think happened once. I think there was a game that I had played where I had like a 6-run first inning or something ridiculous like that, and it was enough to hold me for a while. It was like the 5th or the 6th inning, and Chris was watching, and we were just like, "Oh, you're gonna get to the end?" And of course, no, because the machine's not gonna let you get to the end of the game. That's ridiculous. Just paying a little bit more attention here than usual because I actually am in the middle of a decent run. There we go. Gonna have an extra city to deal with, so I'm gonna have 3. Not bad. Mr. Deuce Castle was the other game that we played pretty regularly. Because Mr. Deuce Castle, like Mr. Do before it, gave you the opportunity to get an extra, like a free game if you... oh no, I can't believe it. Oh, I did it again. Oh, I think I'm done, folks. Maybe not. Nope, I'm done. If you dropped a block and there was a diamond that would hatch, and you got that diamond before it disappeared, you would get a free game, which is unheard of in an arcade game. Getting a free game, that's only like pinball stuff. So getting a free game in an arcade game was really, really cool. So those are the games that we played in that rec hall. But it was tough sledding. Because when you would go, like, every year, like, you know, the summer would end and you'd go back to school or whatever, and then the next school year would end and you'd go back to the campground. You're like, did they get anything new? And it's the same exact arcade games with the same exact damage and the same exact imperfections that you remember from the year before, and nothing changed. It was the same thing every year. I've come to appreciate that kind of consistency in my old age, but back then, as a kid, not so much. And I didn't have anything portable to bring with me, so, you know, Game Boy wasn't a thing that I had until early 1991, and I was already moved out of my mom's and living elsewhere, so I didn't have to worry about being forced to the campground every summer at that point. The campground, I mean, if I'm being completely fair, it wasn't the absolute worst, except sleeping outside, which I hated, because the tent that my mom would set up every year, like, for whatever reason, she would set it up on like a tree trunk, and so, you know, my back would be kind of draped across this tree trunk, and unless it was raining outside, where we all had to fit into my grandmother's camper, and she hated that, by the way. Like, she let you know it too. Don't make a mess. Go to sleep. Ugh. But the rec room made it serviceable, and there was a pool, although I got a really bad ear infection from that pool one year. I never went swimming in it again after that. Like, my ear infection was so bad, my eardrum partially perforated, and I was bleeding out of my ear. So that was not fun. But I met Chris and his sister Shannon and his parents, and that relationship lasted for a long time. We actually met in '85, and when I was having some problems at home my freshman year of high school, they didn't even have to but I mean, they reached out and they said, if you need some place to go or if you need anything, let us know. And they were just such caring people. And I was always grateful for them. And they basically allowed me to be able to move out of uh, move out of my grandmother's house and basically move on from college. That was a difficult decision to make because I basically walked away from college, something I still regret to this day. But I wasn't having it. I wasn't doing very well in school. I didn't feel like I fit in. I look back on it now and I wish I had taken a year off or that I had picked a different major. I was a music major and that wasn't the best move. But when I moved out to Worcester with Chris's sister and his sister's boyfriend, and I got Chris helped me get a job at or he referred me to the phone company. That was a pretty big deal. My first job, it was working for one of the biggest telecommunications companies in the world, working in a call center, which I've always loved doing since. And I get to do a similar job to that, although in a much different function with my new job that starts soon. Just going to let those cities go, I think. But that's how I met him, and we spent a lot of time in that rec room at the pool, reading comic books, and basically just kind of lamenting the fact that we were there. I didn't understand, kids don't understand at that time why parents need a camping getaway. It's like, can't we just stay home? Can't we do something else? What's with all the quiet? What's with getting away from everything? And it took until many years for me to understand why getting away from it all is so important. Even though I don't do it like to go outside, I definitely understand the need to kind of shut yourself away from society for a little bit and just kind of recharge your batteries. If there's one thing, if there's one good thing, and I do, I mean, I don't think I'm going to get a lot of agreement here, but if there's been one good thing about the pandemic for me, it's that because, I'm not the biggest fan of like social interaction, like out in the real world, because I struggle with it. I'm much happier just kind of being at home. This has given me the freedom and the reason to do that. I hear, and understandably, I hear a lot of people upset that they can't go out and do things and life isn't the same, and I get it. I do understand. I think this game's over. But for me, like, I don't feel that way. I'm pretty happy to just kind of be at home. I do miss certain things. I miss going to round one. I miss going to arcades. I miss going retro game hunting. There are certain things that I miss doing that I am willfully giving up. I'm not, it's not that I can't do it. It's that I'm not doing it because I don't want to get sick. But I'm happy to just kind of be at home and to play games and to get on YouTube and to watch a bunch of YouTube. Man, the pandemic's been great for that. Finding some new YouTube channels to watch has been one of the other otherwise positive parts of a relatively negative experience, or an overly negative experience that the pandemic has been. I do miss going to arcades though, and I do miss game hunting. And who knows what's going to happen when my 50th birthday comes in April. I have no idea. And I'm probably just going to wind up spending it the way I'm spending my time right now. It's even a work day for me, so I don't think I'm going to be doing anything special. I'm not going to be taking the day off or anything like that. That was one of the cool things about working in education was my birthday would always or almost always fall on spring recess on spring break. Our spring break period is like the third week in April usually. So I would almost always have my birthday off and some time either before or after. So I could really stretch my birthday into like this really long period of time. I could really draw it out. But now that I'm working full time and working all year round, which is important, I'm not going to be able to have that time off. And of course, for a pretty big number like my 50th birthday, I'm a little sad about that. But again, where the pandemic comes in, it's not like I was going to be doing anything major anyway, so it's not the absolute worst thing in the world. Do want to send a shout out to Sam, who is probably watching this at some point. I've talked in the past about wanting to get an original Xbox for myself. It is the one Generation 6 console that I don't own. And part of me wants to put it on like a birthday wish list for my 50th birthday. But I had been kind of nervous about it because there is an issue with original Xboxes where there's a capacitor, a piece of electronics inside that will leak, and when it leaks, it damages the motherboard, and that's not good. Like, it basically renders the console useless. I wish I hadn't done that. So he reached out to me again on YouTube. He left a comment noting that he can fix that. So if I wind up getting one, whether for myself or if I wind up getting one as a gift that's not adjusted, I'll definitely let you know. Thank you for that. Really, my two retro gaming goals this year, if I can call them goals, but like wants or wish list or whatever you want to call it, would be to get an original Xbox and start collecting for that, and to get a top loading NES, because I think that that's going to work in my GX TV. Those are like my two big things. And the NES honestly isn't even like that big a priority. I really am more curious about the or hopeful in getting the original Xbox if I can find one. I've also thought about getting another Xbox 360. I think I talked about that in my PGA Tour Golf 2 video. Because I've been missing playing the Tiger Woods games. And there's some other stuff too. I mean, I have just a bunch of digital games that I'd like to be able to get back. I enjoyed several of the sports games for it. I'd like to be able to go back and play BioShock, which I can't do. I could with the Switch, but I really don't want to, because it's memory intensive. It's like data intensive. And I think I'm just at the point with the 7th generation of consoles, while it made me frustrated with some of the things that were going on the business side, I did have a lot of memorable experiences from that period. The fact that Xbox Live Arcade was a thing, and we got games that we never thought we would see again, like Tron and Discs of Tron and a decent version of Frogger. I'm in trouble, I think. That was pretty cool. But I do have one city left, okay. And of course, the thing about the Xbox 360 is that there's some original Xbox compatibility. It's not great, and there are some obvious problems with the emulation that it uses. But being able to play a game like ESPN NFL 2K5 in any of the sports games that I could play would be pretty neat. It is the one thing that I miss the most about not having an original Xbox is the sports games, in my estimation, in my opinion, were really, really good. And when my Xbox, the Xbox I used to have, when that died, it was a very sad time. Let me put it that way. And I never got around to replacing it because by that time the Xbox 360 was around, and I was still well into my PS2, and I really wasn't thinking much about the about replacing the Xbox. I'm gonna go one more time here. I know that this is a half hour in, but one more time. So that's what I'm hoping. Birthday's in April. So I got 4 months and change before I even have to start worrying about that. So we'll kind of see how that all happens. In terms of what I've been doing with my downtime, this has been it. I've been doing YouTube at night. I record my gameplay videos for YouTube usually after like 11 o'clock. It's now just after midnight on the 6th as I'm playing this. And I'm just kind of recharging my batteries a little bit. What an interesting day this past day was. There was some freezing rain this morning that made travel really tough, from what I heard. And all the schools were open, so they had some issues with buses getting to where they needed to go. And I live on a little bit of a hill, so I can just imagine myself this morning like sliding down the hill had I had to go to work or go to the school. So I'm kind of counting myself lucky that I didn't have to worry about that this morning. It's been now, this is the end of my 3rd day of being home, and I still miss it very much. Kind of curious as to what's been going on, how the students are doing, how the teachers are doing. I have to make some time, hopefully next week, to be able to get up to the school. I have some things on my former desk that I have to go and pick up. So I know that that's got to happen. I'm still waiting for a little bit more information in terms of when I'm going to be getting my computer for the new job. And trying to just finalize just a couple of minor things before I start. I think I mentioned it before, but it's a 12-week training process. So I'm going to be working 8 to 4:30 Monday through Friday for 3 months. So my birthday will actually be the last day of training. That's actually kind of neat. So I have to kind of figure out how that all works. I am a big fan of corporate training, by the way, and I know that is a weird thing to say, but I've always been a fan of that stuff. Long time ago, even when I was working for AT&T, and then when I was working doing insurance claims for a living, the training process, I always enjoyed it. I always enjoyed learning new things. I'll never forget working at AT&T, and one part of training was a speech class, because out in Worcester you have this really thick Bostonian, Rhode Island accent, because we had workers coming from all over, and AT&T didn't want you to sound region specific. They wanted customers to think that it was, you could be working anywhere. So there was an actual class about how to get rid of accents, and I never had an accent. So it was the easiest class in the world for me to take. The teacher or the instructor was just dumbfounded. Um, and then the rest of training was just a blast. I was able to pick up on it pretty quick. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get promoted anyway because of the kind of work arrangement that I had. I was what's called, well, first a temporary and then a term employee. So you're not really an employee, but you're kind of an employee. And kind of employees were never up for promotion. So the closest to, oh no, that's not good. So the closest to promotion I ever got was being able to work on some self-directed work teams. Like, I got to facilitate a meeting one time, and I would handle agendas, and I'll never forget it because the call center manager thought that I was great, and she lamented the fact that I couldn't move on to like the training team or whatever it was. And that's how I knew like working in call centers was going to be pretty cool. While I'm not working in a call center per se in this particular setup, because I'm going to be working from home and not going into an office, the expectations are pretty much the same. The training class certainly seems like it's going to be the same. And one of the things that I was told during the hiring process was that there's plenty of room for advancement as long as you pick up the job and the responsibilities, and you work hard. And that's really what I want to do this time around with this place. I'm going to be 50, so I probably have about 15 years or so left of really good work experience before I probably have to think about doing something else. And I really want to nail this. I had opportunities at the school that I worked at to do some different things, but my lack of a degree kind of kept me from doing much more. Oh, I was out of missiles. That's not good. I think that the principal would have let me do things. I think the principal would have loved to have seen me actually become a teacher had I had the college degree to do it. But with this particular job, I don't know that that's going to be a concern. No, I screwed up. Darn it. So I'm going to see how it goes. I am really going to try and kind of just throw myself into it. Really, the work environment, the work setup, the opportunity that I'm being afforded to be able to work from home. I mean, it's a great opportunity, and because I've had call center experience in the past, I'm getting that motivation again, like I did the last time I worked in a call center job, and I was able to get promoted within a year. So that's what I'm really going to be aiming for. Um, this is a little bit different than the insurance stuff that I was doing in the past. Um, my insurance work in the past was taking information about like auto accidents and damage to a person's home. This is going to be in health insurance, so it's a little bit different. But I'm hoping I'm going to be able to pick up on it quickly and work pretty hard. So while we wrap up this last game of Missile Command, I do want to thank everyone for checking out the channel. It's been nice to kind of get back in the swing of things. It is a little bit different than what I was doing before. Pete Plays was kind of on the back burner because I was doing more opening of sealed games, and I certainly have some of those to open. But this has just been more fun to do. Being able to more casually just kind of talk about the games I'm playing or about the time period that the games are from, or just about the games themselves, is a blast for me to do. And I think it's more engaging for the viewer too. When you're just watching my ugly mug and I hold up a game in front of you that I'm going to open, like, I don't know how much engagement there is there. I think it's neat to be able to open the game, and I'm trying to give some sense of what it was like to be able to open that game when it was new back then. But here you're able to watch me play a game. I can still talk about whatever I want to talk about. And I think there's more interesting here. That's not to say that I won't do more unsealed stuff. I've got some Madden games over here that I like to open. I don't know if I'm going to do this. I don't think so, but I'm tempted. There's yet another copy of NFL 2K5 for sale on eBay, and it is in prime condition. It's a sealed copy. The last time that I tried to open it up, I had some recording issues, and the problem with unsealing a game is you don't get a second try. If the recording screws up, if you screw up, if the microphone falls on the ground, whatever it is, like, you don't get a redo. Like, the game's already open at that point, so you kind of have to roll with it. And the video itself, I was using a different recorder because I was still using my laptop's webcam. I didn't have these dedicated webcams like I have now. So I'm thinking about it. I've really cut back on sealed game purchases because A, they're really expensive, and B, because I wasn't doing any YouTube for like 3 months. But I still have stuff to open that I want to get to. I have a sealed copy of Final Fantasy IV for the DS that I want to open. I have a copy of Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo that I want to open. I have a copy of NHL 98 that I want to open. So I do have stuff that I want to get to, but the timing kind of has to be right. And the motivation has to be there. Because I could just open it off camera and just play it. But the reason that I got those games was to be able to open them on camera, if for no other reason than for myself, right? Just to kind of relive what it was like to reopen those games and to kind of have that permanent. Yeah, I opened that game and this was what was in it, and it was cool to be able to do that. The big wild card is going to be how the new job goes and what kind of energy I have at the end of the day, which is always an unknown, because I'm going to be talking all day long. So what kind of voice am I going to have at the end of the day? How much energy am I going to have? What's my schedule look like? So that's why I've really been working to try and take advantage of the time that I have now and to put some stuff up that I enjoy doing. And really, this has been great. One thing I do want to do, and I fully intend on doing this, I don't see how I wouldn't, is gonna do like ESPN has done does like a 30 for 30 series. Um, I want to do a 50 for 50 where I talk about 50 of my favorite games of all time. I'm not going to put them in any order. It's just going to be a different game every day. Um, the thing is, like, it's just too soon for me to start that. I have to do that. I have to do that starting in February. Whew, that was close. That's something I definitely have in the bullpen, and I'm thinking about how I'm going to pull it off. Like, I don't know whether I want to do it on Twitter or whether I want to do it on one of the blog pages I have or what I want to do. But it's going to get done because I want to do something to acknowledge 50 years. I've been playing video games since 76, so it's been a long time. I have a lot of games to potentially pick from. If you know me at all, you know that picking just a small selection of games when I've played so many throughout my life is going to be tough to do. But I think I have 50 that I can narrow it down to. All right. This is the best game so far. That's fine. Wow, I got 100,000. I don't know what I'm going to do with those blog pages. You know, I've had those for a long time, and I really did intend on using them more. And I think what's happened is, and I talked to some of the students in my internet basics class that I taught in middle school or for the middle school. Now I'm dead. I had talked about how complex it is and um, how much time it takes to keep a blog updated on a regular basis. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do with those. I will definitely have to consider it and see where it goes. So anyway, it's been almost 50 minutes of Missile Command action. It has been awesome to be able to play this game and to relive my memories and to talk to you guys about those. Thanks very much for watching. I really appreciate it. And until the next time, take care of yourselves and each other, and we'll do it again soon.